Hi guys, hello my friends, welcome back to another episode of what I hope is something that will really help you with these foundational structures, with these connecting structures in the horses. In the previous video we talked quite a bit about the feet and some of my insights into the hooves, so go back and take a look at that because this builds on that. I'm going to also hypothesize that one of the big reasons why some of these ideas are not more well known or entering the mainstream even faster is because a lot of us don't understand enough of a few details to ask intelligent questions. So, for example, your veterinarian, your farrier, your trimmer, your equine dentist shows up and is talking about what they see or what they don't see, and you'd be like, yep, 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 or wonder if that's really true. So my intent is not to discourage anyone from looking at this deeper. It really is fairly straightforward to learn some of the biomechanics around what I'm going to talk about in this video, the teeth. So asking intelligent questions, sometimes that is at least half the battle. If we don't know enough about what to even ask about, how are we going to get deeper into that subject? So here goes with some good ideas, I hope, for you. Well, if I go back to my prehistory again, and I am a paleontologist digging up bones, and I find a horse's skull and their teeth, I'm going to be able to tell you some pretty cool things about that animal, even not knowing exactly what they look like or exactly how they lived. Simply from looking at their structures, I could tell you a lot of cool things about how they ended up being shaped that way. So look at the shape of a horse's head. This is Al, my friend, who's going to be helping us today. He was about a 5-year-old warm blood type horse, big boy, got a heavy head. Horses' heads are quite long. They're not round like ours. Here's the eye, here's the ear back here, here's the temporomandibular joint, the sinuses, the nose, the front teeth down here. What's this mouth doing so far forward, along with this nose so far forward? Why end up with that shape, do you think? Could it be that these eyes being up higher and further away from here give you a pretty good look at what's going around, even if your mouth and nose was down in the grass or deep in the bushes or trees? This distance here would make a difference in being able to keep an eye out for things. Their nose and their mouth together like this down here, it's interesting to think about how it's such a coordinated effort with horses and equines to investigate and feel out with their nose and their smell and their teeth and their mouth. And if you've been around horses, you know how they love to feel everything with their mouth. They're very oral creatures. So horses are constantly investigating their environment if they have the opportunity and the wherewithal and the interest in doing so. So think about what you can do in your environment to complement that. Horses spend time moving about, checking things out, putting their mouth on everything. This is a strategy to seek and find. They are on a constant quest to do that. They first see and or hear or smell, excellent sense of smell that even rivals some bloodhound dogs, for example. Amazing senses to seek and find and then go and investigate. And they will put their lips on it or put their teeth on it, and then they'll take a little nip, a little chew, and taste it and think, oh, that's pretty good. I think I'll have some more of that. And then if it's good, they're very taste driven. If something tastes good, they will go after it even more, especially on the sweet side. Horses have a sweet tooth for sure. And then once they nip the food off with their front teeth here, called the incisors, they pass it to their back teeth here, called the molars, the chewing teeth. And it's quite like a conveyor belt. They can have their head down, eating, nipping, chewing, passing it back to their chewing teeth, and this is all happening simultaneously. It's a big concert that they don't have to lift their head, they don't have to stop. It's just like nip, chew, swallow, chew, nip, swallow. It's just round and around and around, like a conveyor belt in their mouth. How about these teeth on the side here on this boy, right here and here? These are the canine teeth. Now, of course, this is not a canine, this is an equine, but the name comes from canines, dogs, wolves, that have big fangs, right? Well, evolutionarily, these four teeth, top and bottom, two on each side, are called the canines, and they only really have much size in the male horses, the stallions. They are used for fighting, for grabbing, for holding, for getting a hold of a competitor or a rival and taking him down. If you get locked on with some effort by a horse and they sink their canines into you, you will not be getting away. They can really hold and take you down. The female horses, or the mares, don't have much size to their canines at all. Sometimes they're not even there, or if they are, they're very, very much smaller and don't have a lot of root to them. These are quite substantial. What about these other little teeth that some people are talking about called wolf teeth? That's another funny name. Also from canines. This is a young horse here, the top half of the skull of a 3-year-old, 2.5 to 3-year-old horse. And this little tooth right here and right here on the top, so this is the top here, like this. See that little tooth right there? And this little tooth over here? This is premolar number 1 and premolar number 2, 3, 4. These wolf teeth, as they're called, are quite short-rooted. Evolutionary biologists think that these little wolf teeth used to be bigger chewing teeth and had more responsibility millions of years ago, and this seems to be left over from what they used to have. And anyway, just wanted to show you what wolf teeth look like right there. What else? How some of this stuff works. The molars, the chewing teeth, sometimes called the cheek, C-H-E-E-K, cheek teeth. Let's get Al back up here to show you this. So these big, massive chewing teeth, top and bottom, right through here. Notice this nice curvature from front to back. There's a special name for that curvature. Just realize it's not straight, and it's not supposed to be straight. You see that nice curvature as it goes from front to back. We want to respect that when we're working on horses' teeth. We don't want to make that flat. Let's take this apart and look at some of the surfaces here. Look at the surfaces of these teeth here. They're quite rough. These are all enamel folds through here. And this works much like a mortar and pestle. Now, the pestle is what you hold in your hand when you're grinding grain or something in a bowl, which is called the mortar. And in this case, the upper teeth would be like the mortar or the bowl, and the bottom teeth, get that up here and show you, also with lots of enamel folds. These are quite a bit more dense, more densely constructed teeth on the bottom jaw. the lower mandible, as I have holding here. And another interesting thing is that as this jaw moves around to chew, horses can only chew on one side at a time. If we move our jaw up and down, we can get our top and bottom teeth together simultaneously, left and right. Horses are not able to do that, and we'll show you why. You see how closely set these teeth are here to here versus the top. Look how much farther apart they are. So to get these teeth together, a horse would have to bring that lower jaw over to fully engage that side there, and then come back to center. Look how much is out of occlusion now on both sides. So they're not fully together on either side unless the horse brings their jaw over to chew on that side or left side here. Now look at what happens here with this occlusion. This is the front teeth together and centered. We call that centric occlusion. And when they chew to the side, look what happens to those incisors. They come apart. Why is that? Together, apart, together, apart. And you can do this in a live horse, and it's important to learn how to do that. Well, why are those front teeth coming apart? This is one of those things that helps you ask a really smart question. What is the degree of occlusion or connection with the back teeth that might be causing this? Because that's where it's coming from. Look at the top again. Look at this angle. In other words, if I get a flat edge here with my ruler and put it across here, flat, look how the surface of those teeth is not flat. Here's the angle here, and here's an angle over here, like this. So not flat, but like a tabletop, or a rooftop angle rather, like this. There you go. Now on the bottom, you'll have a complementary angle to that. Here's the bottom again. Not flat. If I put my flat edge there, look at how there's an angle to the surface, the chewing surface of these teeth. Here's the angle up like this. And then over here, angles coming up like this. So, top to bottom, these chewing teeth they don't come together in a flat way. They come together in this angled fashion. And so it truly is like a mortar and pestle, this jaw moving around and around and around, coming up into the top teeth to grind and shear and shred. Horses don't mash their food. Not like us where we crush and mash our food. Horses don't do that. They grab it and they bring these teeth across each other like a mortar and pestle and shred it up. Okay? Put this back together again. So that's why the front teeth come apart, because when you engage the back teeth, it rides up this angle. Higher and higher angle, causing the front teeth to come apart. One quick tangent I wanted to touch on was what happens if horses get too long in their front teeth, long in the tooth. Well, it really is a thing, especially in domestic horses. Why? They're not grazing. They don't graze very much compared to feral or wild horses. So here's a 3 millimeter piece of cardboard that I'm going to put to mimic extra length of the incisors. Okay, it's about the amount of growth that or eruption of the teeth, because horses' teeth are constantly erupting, wearing down, erupting, wearing down. If we put that extra thickness to indicate what it might be like if a horse had incisors that were too long, like this, Now I have longer top front teeth. It doesn't matter, top or bottom. Of course, they both would get longer in a horse that's not grazing. Now, here's together, and I'll have to move my jaw further to come apart, way over here, because it comes back into contact sooner. What is that doing to the back teeth? It's keeping them apart. They go to chew to the side and they can get it apart, but it has to come way over here. So I will tell you absolutely that well over 75% of the horses I look at have some excess length to their incisors, unless they are full-time grazers and or using hay nets that they have to use their front teeth. Very important. I hope that gives you a visual and an understanding of why incisor length up front is so important to have it correct. If it's at all long like this, they have to go further and further and further to chew on that side and on this side, because this extra length here is pushing these back teeth apart. If they get longer and longer, look how the back teeth will just get pushed apart like that. Okay, what else? Let's talk about what happens with these points, because you talk about floating horses' teeth. I wanted to show you these points that come up on the top towards the cheek right here. These are the sharp points on the top, right there and right there. See how sharp those are right there? That can cause some damage and pain to the horse's cheeks on the top, where that angle is coming down towards the cheek. And on the bottom, with that angle, remember, coming towards the tongue, up towards the tongue, these sharp points on the inside here and here can hurt the tongue or be quite uncomfortable to the tongue. So that's where we use files to help out horses be more comfortable in their mouth. That's traditional floating. Now, if you overdo that, can you imagine how if you took off too much material on the inside here, and if you took off too much material on the outside on the top, you would cause these molar table angles, as they're called, to become flatter and flatter and flatter. We don't want to do that. We just want to remove points conservatively, judiciously, with an awareness that we don't want to flatten these connections at all back here. Okay. Talked about centric occlusion. That means the front teeth together when the jaw is centered. We talked about domestic horses not grazing enough. They get their incisors too long, which forces their back teeth apart. What else happens when horses have to work and press really hard? Imagine your front teeth getting a little bit long. You love to chew. You're a very oral creature. You will press your teeth together harder and harder and harder, and that compresses the front and the back. The front being the incisors, a lot of pressure up front here, and a lot of pressure back here at the TMJ, temporomandibular joints, both sides. A lot of horses have some pretty severe headaches from really having to press very, very hard to get their chewing teeth together because their incisors have grown too long. A whole host of problems with balance, even neurologic problems, headaches, sinus problems, anything involving the trigeminal nerve and the facial nerves in the head can become affected. And truly throughout the horse's entire body. I think general body stiffness in horses being so epidemic can very often come because their incisors are too long. Think about that. It's one of these foundational connecting structures that gets out of balance a little bit, and boy, it just wreaks havoc. So I think I've touched on that enough. I wanted to really get that point across. I got one other skull here that shows one of the very common deformities. Probably one of the most common deformities that I see in horses, domestic horses that don't graze. Now this is, horse has got long incisors, and this is called an overjet. Can you see how the top front teeth here are, get that lined up, they're pushed over the bottom right here. See that lip right there? The top incisor pushed over the top of the bottom ones here. That's because this lower jaw is retracted. This jaw has been pushed back over time. And look at the deformities that have come into the chewing teeth. These chewing teeth up here have become quite long. These are quite shallow back here, both sides. Very imbalanced. This horse was probably never taken care of. And these deformities started to come because this very likely happened first. Now, why do horses get an overjet? Why a little bit of an overbite? Now, an overbite is different if they totally miss here. This is called an overjet. Another intelligent question that you can ask. What's the difference between an overjet and an overbite? Well, this is an overjet, and an overbite would be if they totally missed, like this. Okay? So, put that back together. I think it's inactivity, lack of movement, lack of grazing, a bored lifestyle, standing around. Horses that stand around and don't have their head down in that grazing position like they should a lot of their life, they end up with mandibular retraction. Mandibular jaw, lower jaw, retraction, pushed back. So it's out of position. So head down, lower jaw comes into a better position. Grazing, you keep your front teeth more correct. If neither of those things happen, or some of those things don't happen, you end up with overgrown incisors and overjet. It's absolutely epidemic. And again, at least 3/4 or more of the horses. I haven't looked at the spreadsheet lately, but it's well over 75% of the horses that I look at need some attention to their incisors because of the deformities that are showing up because of their domestication. And we can help them out here. We can address these things in a complementary fashion. We don't want to antagonize things by taking too much or causing things to be smooth. Again, these chewing surfaces are very rough. They should not be smooth. It's one of the other reasons I don't like power tools, is because they leave too smooth of a surface. We want to maintain that nice corrugated edge, like a pie crust edge. That helps them hang on to their food. If you make it too smooth, they slobber, they can't get their back teeth together, they don't get that satisfied feeling of being satiated, being fed. So very important not to overdo it. And if you are using power tools, please be super careful and quite judicious and conservative. Don't overdo it. So we talked about that stiffness. Imagine having that overjet and things getting caught in that pattern of side to side. You would no longer be able to circle your jaw very well. One of the interesting things is if you look at the top versus the bottom teeth in horses and you measure the distance here from the front to the back, let's do that here. This one is 8 1/4 inches from front to back on the top. Okay. How about the bottom? The length of the arcade from front to back. This one, 7 7/8. 7 7/8 about. That is, wow, 3/8 of an inch difference from top to bottom. Isn't that cool evidence that horses' lower jaw needs to move front to back a little bit as a horse chews? Otherwise, they would end up with some overgrowth, some malocclusion, and it's very common to see because some horses do just chew side to side because of an overjet here. and you'll see washboard, we call it transverse ridging, in their back teeth back here. Looks like washboard in a road. Not good. It really locks up their mandibular excursion movements and prevents any anterior posterior movements. So we call that an elliptical type of chewing pattern. So you measure any skull and you will find that the top arcade is longer than the bottom, because that bottom arcade, the mandible, needs to traverse forward and back a little bit to maintain good wear on everything front to back. If that didn't happen and they only went side to side, you would probably get quite large hooks on the top here and ramps, we call that ramps in the back sticking up behind. And that really locks up their jaw, and then they really are. It's a vicious cycle of things that prevent normal anterior posterior movement of the jaw even more. So definitely things we keep track of. What else? Those are the main things that I wanted to talk about. Again, I hope this stimulates at least enough interest and some excitement for you to investigate it further. I talk about these things in my book in depth and in an interesting way, I hope. A well-written, easily understandable way. It's not so technical that you can't understand it. Check out the book. It's available online. And I will be printing more books, but I'm out of hard copies right now, so get your online copy and get to reading. I hope it's interesting. Again, we want to nurture and complement our relationship with these animals, because after all, that's what has attracted us to each other in a mutual way. Our mutual curiosity, our mutual admiration. You know, I don't know if horses admire us as much as they're curious about us, but we definitely admire them and their how they exude power and spirit and freedom. And so we want to do everything possible to complement that. We don't want to corral it. We don't want to bit it. We don't want to gag it. We don't want to not feed it appropriately. So many things, and that's the holistic viewpoint that I talk about in the book. So hope you can get to reading, and I will see you next time.